The date is April 10th, 2026. In the heart of Jerusalem, one man stands at the center of a storm that has lasted nearly half a century: Benjamin Netanyahu. To his supporters, he is the King of Israel, the only leader capable of standing against a nuclear Iran. To his critics, he is the architect of a divided nation, a politician whose survival instinct has reshaped the Middle East at a staggering cost. Just weeks ago, in February 2026, the world watched as Netanyahu authorized Operation Roaring Lion, a direct high-intensity strike against Iranian nuclear infrastructure that shattered decades of shadow war. As we sit here today, the smoke over Tehran is still clearing, and Netanyahu is already preparing for the November 2026 elections. But to understand how we got to this brink of global war, we have to go back to a time before the scandals, before the Abraham Accords, and before the title of Prime Minister. We have to go back to the unit that forged him, Sayeret Matkal. Benjamin was born in 1949, but his identity was forged in 1976. On a hot July night in Entebbe, Uganda, his older brother, Yoni Netanyahu, led the rescue of over 100 Jewish hostages. Yoni was the only Israeli soldier to die that night. This loss didn't just break the Netanyahu family, it created a doctrine. Benzion Netanyahu, Benjamin's father and a historian of the Inquisition, taught his son a hard truth: in every generation they rise against us. For Benjamin, the lesson was clear: Israel cannot rely on the world's sympathy, it must rely on its own iron wall. By the 1980s, Bibi was the world's face at the United Nations. Young, fluent in American-accented English, and incredibly telegenic. He wasn't just a diplomat, he was a media sensation. He warned the world about radical Islam long before September 11th was even a thought. In 1996, Netanyahu became the youngest prime minister in Israel's history. But his most lasting domestic legacy actually happened in the early 2000s as finance minister. Imagine a race. On one side is a fat man, on the other, a thin man. Netanyahu told the Israeli public that the government was the fat man sitting on the back of the private sector, the thin man. He slashed taxes, he cut welfare, he privatized state-owned giants. The result? The startup nation. Tel Aviv's skyline transformed into a forest of glass and steel. Israel became a global leader in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and water tech. This economic boom was his secret weapon. He realized that if Israel was economically indispensable, the world would have to accept its political reality. For decades, the experts said peace with the Arab world was impossible without a Palestinian state. Netanyahu disagreed. He spent the 2010s building a different kind of bridge. A bridge built on shared fear of Iran and shared desire for Israeli technology. In 2020, the world saw the result: the Abraham Accords. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, all normalized ties with Israel without a single concession on the Palestinian front. It was the greatest diplomatic victory of his career. But while the borders were opening abroad, the walls were closing in at home: corruption trials, massive protests over judicial reforms. The magician was running out of rabbits. Then came the day that changed everything. October 7th, 2023. The Mr. Security brand was shattered in a single morning. Many thought October 7th would be the end of Netanyahu. They were wrong. Over the next 3 years, he pivoted from defense to a total war strategy. By 2025, he had successfully sidelined his rivals and focused the nation's attention on one target: Tehran, February 2026. Operation Roaring Lion begins. Hundreds of Israeli and American jets hit Iranian nuclear sites. For the first time, the red line Netanyahu had drawn at the UN years ago was crossed. As of today, the region is in a state of new reality. The proxy wars are over. The direct confrontation has begun. Is Benjamin Netanyahu the protector who saved the Jewish state from a nuclear second Holocaust? Or is he a leader who burned the bridges of democracy to stay in power? As Israel heads toward the November 2026 elections, the answer depends entirely on who you ask. One thing is certain: the history of the 21st century cannot be written without him.